Now, Deputy Pringle, please.
Good night, Taoiseach. I am raising an issue today I've raised on numerous occasions with you over the last couple of years. It must be raised as often as possible so that it will at some stage be dealt with comprehensively. The HSE have to realise it is not going to go away. It was a bad situation when we heard about the activities of the so-called Brandon, who I believe was failed himself by the HSE as well. How the families were let down by the HSE at all stages, not told the truth about their loved ones, and even to this day, some of them have not heard the full story from the HSE. A couple of weeks ago in the national papers we read about another report that has been carried out by the HSE itself that has identified an additional 10 abusers in our Grania Court and the Sean O'Hare unit in Ballybofey, County Donegal. Additional 10 abusers in our Grania Court and in the Sean O'Hare unit in Ballybofey, County Donegal, the same place that Brandon lived in. One of the most shocking things about this report was that it was prepared by a trawl of files within the centre. So all this information was on file in the centre, which means that management knew about it all along. I think that is worth saying again, Taoiseach. HSE management knew all about these cases at all times. Families read about the new cases in the paper. Some of them have been contacted by the HSE to tell them that their loved one was abused by someone else other than Brandon. And some, thankfully, have been told that their loved one was not abused, but very few. But we must question why this is. How at this stage the families are finding out like this. I believe that all the families with loved ones in our Grania, whether they've been abused or not, should be offered independent advocacy even at this late stage. Taoiseach, we cannot rely on the HSE at this stage to do the right thing. As if we needed confirmation, but this shows that they have let down residents, families and their own staff in the most horrible way. I understand that Minister Rabbit is drawing up a report on the Brandon case that will be published so that we can be aware of and speak freely about what has happened. Taoiseach, when will the Minister's report be forthcoming? I really think that the only solution to this situation is a Muckamore Abbey type inquiry like we have seen in the north. Will you support and make sure that a full public inquiry will take place so that we can be sure that the families, residents and staff receive full information as to what went on in our Grania and indeed all disability services within Donegal, but also I think the HSE nationally as well. The HSE nationally have tried to block the discussion on this case as much as they can, but at least they cannot control the Dáil anyway. But we need to have this happen, Taoiseach.
Thank you, Deputy Pringle. Taoiseach.
Well, first of all, I thank the Deputy for raising this important issue and very serious issue. And as you say, the HSE did commission the National Independent Review Panel to carry out a review into very serious incidents of concern which took place between 2003 and 2016. That resulted in the publication of the National Independent Review Panel Brandon report for publication in December. And prior to the NIRP commission, a look-back review into these incidents had been conducted by an external expert. In order to ensure completeness, HSE CHO1 separately commenced a file review period from 1991 to 2002, reflecting the time period that Brandon was in the care of disability services. Again, the purpose of this was to screen all records for any notations referring to alleged or actual sexual conduct during this time frame. And once this work was completed, it was then externally validated. This file review, the validation report, was recently made available to the Minister for Disability, Anne Rabbitte. The Minister also met with the HSE in recent weeks to discuss the reports and issues raised. The HSE is continuing to progress the recommendations from this exercise as well as those of the Brandon report. The HSE advises that it is prioritising engagement with service users and families affected by the outcome of the review. Further support offers will be made in the coming weeks when residents' families have had time to consider what may be helpful to them. Minister Rabbitte, together with senior officials in the Department of Health and the Department of Children, is close to finalising terms of reference for an independent safeguarding review of disability services in Donegal. An independent expert in safeguarding will be appointed to chair the review. The report has been, and it's the validation report, to my understanding of the report, has been provided to An Garda Síochána. And it's in response on June the 17th. The Gardaí have advised that they have conducted a preliminary perusal of the report and appendices. Given the historic nature of many of the issues, a considerable trawl of records will be needed, which on Garda Síochána say will require a period of time to conduct and then review the report and compare it with existing information. And Garda Síochána has indicated a period of 6 weeks would be required to undertake this process. The government does and will take and continues to take these issues very seriously and take allegations of abuse particularly seriously. We appreciate people coming forward to report safeguarding concerns to the appropriate authorities and professional bodies. Now, in relation to the core question you've asked, in terms of an inquiry, I would like, and I will discuss this further with Minister Rabbitte and indeed members of government in respect of what is transpiring here and the outcome of the latest validation report. But equally, we do have to take on board what Garda Síochána are saying. And well, I'm going to wait the 6 weeks in terms of the trial that they're doing. And we don't want to undermine any particular action that the Gardaí might have to take in relation to this either. And that's something that we can't just dismiss.
Deputy Pringle.
Taoiseach, thanks for the response. I think it raises more questions. And I wasn't going to deal with this today, but I think it has to be dealt with. The Gardaí were informed about Brandon. 10 years they did nothing. So the Gardaí are not the body that is going to be responsible for dealing with this. And I think it's sad to say that we can't rely on them, but that is a fact, Taoiseach. You know, this is a lot bigger issues, and there's been failings right across the board, not only in the HSE, but the HSE are the main cause of it. But the Gardaí have failed, I believe HICWA have failed, and there's been huge failings, and the people that they have failed are the residents, the families, and the staff members of Ardgrania Court, and wider services right across Donegal. So I think it has to be an independent report. We can't rely on, and I'm sorry, but if you're I wouldn't put any store on the guards at this stage in relation to it. It hasn't been dealt with and it hasn't been published rightly through this, but they have nothing to benefit in relation to this. So I think, Taoiseach, I would urge you to talk to your cabinet colleagues, talk to the minister, look at having an independent report, an independent investigation. That's the only way that this can be done, because it has to be done in the open, fully out there. The HSE, this would never have come out at all if it was left to the HSE. This would be hidden all the time, and that's the reality of the situation. Thanks.
Well, first of all, what may have happened 10 years ago may not inform what could happen today in terms of a rigour of a Garda investigation. So we've been told it'll be about 6 weeks. I think given all that's happened, I think we're prepared, obviously, to give the Gardaí that 6 weeks. But I'm not dismissing, ultimately, what you are suggesting. And we'll give that very careful consideration in terms of how we take this forward, to give clarity, answers to the families and to the victims. I'm aware of what you said in relation to the validation report when I became aware of that myself very recently in preparation for this situation. So I think it's very, very serious, and given the scale of it, potential scale of it, it could very well merit an inquiry of some sort. But we have to work through how best to do that.
That concludes leaders' questions.